Hello and welcome to the first episode of Sports Talk with Jake. It's a very, very great name. I know it's such an original name that I got going on here. Clearly, that's a placeholder for now. But this is episode 0. Call it. It's kind of going to be a trial run because this is something I've kind of played with a little bit in my mind of how I've always wanted to talk about sports because I have always loved watching sports. I love going to sporting events, and I figured, hey, why not make this a thing about this? You can hear my biased takes, my frustrations with a lot of the stuff that's going on, some of the news that I'm hearing, talk about all that stuff. I've got a lot to say, and I think it would be fun to experiment with this. So let's talk about, before we get started, I want to say hi, welcome. I'm Jake, and my teams in sports, my main sports that I watch is hockey. I watch football and basketball. Those are really my 3 main sports that I say I would watch, and I dabble with professional wrestling. Wow, that's you. Now here you're going, oh, click off this video. That's not a sport. You know what? It's real to me, damn it. Aside from that, my teams in those sports would be the Chicago Blackhawks, which have had probably the worst offseason you could ever imagine from a front office standpoint, and one of the better off seasons on an on-ice perspective with the players that they got. The acquisition of Marc-Andre Fleury, and there was the whole thing about him. Will he play? Will he not play? It turns out he is playing. He is currently our starting goalie, and we are 0-1-1. Just as we all expected, Fleury letting in 4 goals within the first 5 minutes of the game to the Pittsburgh Penguins last week, getting pulled in his second start. Great start to the season there. I don't want to get into some of the conversations yet, but I'm just going to say that I am very much so on the fire Jeremy Colliton train. This has been going on way too long now. I think the Colliton experiment has been, it's unsuccessful. It's not clicking with the veteran players, and you can tell that they're not motivated at all. It's incredibly frustrating to watch because this has happened for 3 years in a row now where this team starts off slow. Well, counter last year, they started off hot and got completely cold, ice cold in the middle of the season, but they don't look motivated. They aren't buying into the style and the playing style that Jeremy Colliton is bringing to this team. I am extremely frustrated watching this team. I know the depth we have. This is one of the last seasons we're going to have with Jonathan Toews, who has come back from his season off, which I love seeing him out there. Toews is my favorite hockey player of all time. I am so happy to see him back on the ice. We got rid of Duncan Keith. We brought in some younger players. Seth Jones, we signed him to a ridiculously long-term contract, $9.5 million for 8 years. I still am on the fence about that contract. I don't think it was the best decision for our team considering the other free agents that they could have brought in. But I think that there's something that this team has got to do at this point. I don't know how many times we can just keep spinning our wheels over and over again. They gave up on Coach Quenneville in 2018 after 10 games, I believe, and brought in Colliton, and it just has not worked. And I don't think that we can really wait because that gap to contend for another championship is closing fast. This is one of the only years we'll be able to do it. We have 1 year left with Marc-Andre Fleury's contract. I don't see him re-signing at all. I could see him retiring after this season. So this is probably his last goodbye. Again, this core is not going to stay here for much longer. If we don't win, if we're not contending, I don't see why a player like Jonathan Toews is going to want to come back. And I know he wants to stay a Chicago Blackhawk, but if Stan Bowman is not doing enough to keep that veteran core happy, I don't blame anyone for wanting to go off because this has been how many years now of just mediocrity. And yes, we had that slip in the pandemic season of getting in and beating the Oilers in the play-in to get into the first round, but everyone knows how that happened. They got demolished in the first. They got demolished in 5 games to Robin Lehner and to the guy they traded away in the offseason, in the middle of the season. It's good times. It's been a very, very fun time being a Blackhawk fan, and that's talk about the on-ice stuff. Let's not talk about the off-ice stuff, which, let's be clear, if any of this comes out to be true, which I know, obviously allegations are allegations, and I'm kind of one to stay innocent until proven guilty, but there's so much that is pointing against everything that's happening right now that it's pretty hard to enjoy a lot of what I'm seeing so far on the ice, knowing that there hasn't been any action really taken against this front office. If it is found out that the players did know, which Again, I don't want to speculate, but if it finds out that players like Taze and Patrick Kane knew and didn't do anything, I don't see how I can keep supporting this team. And that's not me have anything to do with the on ice, because as much as I'm excited for on ice, this off-season, off-ice stuff is going to loom in the back of my head for a while now. And I hope there's some resolution. I hope if Stan Bowman was involved that he is reefed out of that front office. I hope that they get rid of him and do an overhaul. I hope that on ice, this team gets their crap together, and off ice, they figure out what's going on with this, because I don't know how much longer I can keep seeing more stuff pop up without the league or the Blackhawks front office taking any action against it. It's really horrifying that stuff like this is still able to happen in sports. And thinking how it happened 11 years ago, and it's just coming out now. That's upsetting. But aside from that, that's kind of my initial hockey stuff. Going on to football, I am a New England Patriots fan. You can say whatever you want to say. I've heard all of it. I'm a bandwagoner. I'm all of that. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, there's nothing original you can say to me that I haven't heard before. But aside from that, I am more of a general football fan in total. I love watching every game. I have Red Zone on every single Sunday. 7 hours of commercial-free football with Scott Hansen is nothing beats that to me. It's the highlight of my week, honestly, is seeing football. And we've come off to a really crazy start, especially with primetime games rather. Majority of them have delivered. They've all been really close games, and I think that honestly it's a pretty fascinating year to me this year, because I don't think there's a clear-cut contender. You look at some of the teams that everyone was expecting to be good, like the Chiefs. Of course, they have Patrick Mahomes. Their team really hasn't changed, but you see them play in their defense and how lethargic they've been on defense and just getting torched. And Mahomes has been very un-Mahomes-like this year, already throwing 8 interceptions in his first 6 games, when last year he only threw 6 in total, and the year before he only threw 5. So some very interesting things we're seeing going on in the Chiefs there, the AFC West in general. The Raiders, obviously, there's been a lot of drama with John Gruden and his firing. It'll be fascinating to see how that team, how they rebuttal and how they recover from all of this news, this horrifying news that came out about Gruden. The Chargers are a team that I think before, at least last night, 2 nights ago, had a very good chance at contending pretty deep until they got blown out by Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, which I don't think anyone expected. I know Herbert is playing at an MVP level so far, and I think that he's going to have some dips and dives as the season goes on, because it's only his second year in the league. And I think that he's one of the futures of the league. I just don't know how far this Chargers team can go if he's not playing at that level constantly. Even though they are a very deep team, Austin Eckler is one of the best catching running backs in the league. Mike Williams is turned into the downhill threat we thought he was going to be. Finally, he's become that. And Keenan Allen is Keenan Allen. And their defense, while it's not the same devastating defense they've had for years now, I still think they're really good enough to keep up with it. We'll see what happens with that team. The Broncos are the Broncos. That they're not doing anything this year. I love Teddy Bridgewater. I'm on the pro Teddy train. They're not doing anything this year. And the AFC North is also another division that I think is really interesting. Let's just go through all the divisions now, shall we? I'm here. I might as well talk about them. AFC North, I think the clear-cut contenders here are the Ravens. I think that Lamar has progressed a lot better than I was expecting. I'm not going to sit here and say that I love Lamar Jackson. I have a lot of issues with him as a player, but there's no denying how much of a freak he is. A freak athleticism. Seeing him run with that ball, he is a threat constantly. And I think that is going to propel them to win the AFC North. Right behind them is the Bengals. Surprising. I don't think anyone saw the Bengals being 4-2 to start the season off. I know that they haven't really had the hardest schedule. They've beaten the Lions, they've beaten they've beaten the Jaguars, they beat the Steelers, and they beat the Vikings. It's not really the hardest schedule so far, and the only loss was to the Packers, which anyone who saw that game knows the Bengals should have won 3 times over. They didn't, and they lost to the Bears, which that just happened. I like watching the Bengals play. I think Joe Burrow is a really good player. I was on the train of not taking Jamar Chase to start off the season. I think that they really should have gone for a offensive lineman to help protect Burrow, especially coming off of his season-ending injury. And apparently I was wrong, because that connection of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow from LSU is still there, and it is one of the most exciting connections to watch in the league. They have been phenomenal to watch, and I think as long as that offense is sparking, we got Joe Mixon, who's a bit healthier than he was last year. He's really only missed a little bit of time so far. Hopefully they can stay healthy. A team that can't stay healthy, however, is the Cleveland Browns, and I just feel horrible for them watching the amount of injuries. Baker Mayfield is playing through some shoulder injuries. You got Kareem Hunt just went down and got carted off. He's been put on IR and is expected to be out for several weeks. Alongside Nick Chubb is also already out, and their defense is getting slaughtered. They just lost JOK. They are a team that should be doing so much better than they are, but they're hurt, and they don't have too much help on offensive either, because Odell is not the same player as he once was, as we've seen a couple weeks he's played. Another team that is not the same as what we thought last year is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are continuing their decline from last year after starting off the season 11-0 and finishing 12-4. Obviously, they had that I'm not going to say horrible loss. It was a horrible loss to the Browns in the wildcard weekend. I did enjoy watching it. I felt a lot of catharsis for the Browns team and the fans of the Browns who've been waiting for that moment. But Ben Roethlisberger coming back was a very interesting decision so far. I think there was a lot of news about him losing weight, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's gonna be great." And look at the team; they're gonna be the same team that they were last year, and that's obviously not the case. Because watching Ben Roethlisberger has been me wanting to claw my eyes out, because he has not been good at all, and he played all right against the Seahawks, but I just there's something about him that he's clearly his time has passed. And it's really sad to still watch him go out there, look like a corpse of himself, and throw the ball, dip and dive, and just it's painful. I want Ben, a great player, to go out on top, not looking like this. The Steelers are, as long as their defense is as good as it is, which they've been a little bit hit or miss so far this year, they have a chance to do something. I just don't think that they're going to go far at all this year. A team, however, that I can't really read this team yet is the Titans. The Tennessee Titans just had a massive win last night against the Buffalo Bills, a team that has been also pretty banged up to start the season. Their offensive line has been shuffled around like crazy, and Ryan Tannehill has been running for his life. But a player that has kept them in so far is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has, to me, been the MVP of the season so far. I don't think many people, aside from last night, I think maybe now they're going to start to talk about it a little bit more. I think that Derrick Henry, I don't know how you can't look at his stats and go, he's the clear-cut MVP in my eyes right now. He has 783 total yards on the ground already with 162 attempts. And that it's the first 6 games of the season. He started the season off with 58 yards. And since then, he has not gone lower than 113 yards. He has gone over 100 yards every single game. He has 10 touchdowns on the season so far. Derrick Henry, to me, is the clear-cut MVP. And you can argue the quarterbacks, the Tom Brady's. I think I had this discussion with my friend a couple days ago. I think we're getting to the point where MVPs aren't the same as they used to be. And I think that the league should start looking at some offensive player of the year MVPs from skill-based positions, and also use MVPs from the quarterback's positions, because I think that you can't. How is Henry not getting more talk about this? He is the best running back in the league right now, and it's incredible to watch what he's doing right now. And I think that Titans, as much as they're pretty up and down with all their injuries, their defense, their cornerbacks are destroyed right now. They lost so many players last night. I think that they're the clear-cut best team in the AFC South because when you look at the other three teams, the Jaguars are a mess. I know they just had their first win of the season, their first win in 20 games against the porous Miami Dolphins team, another team which should be doing a lot better than they are, but they, for some reason, can't get anything going. And the Colts are the Colts. I think that they're not as bad as their record stands. They're 2-4 right now. I think Carson Wentz is playing pretty solid, which I think a lot of people expected is that Carson wasn't fully the issue in Philadelphia. And I think that once they get more time, I think this Colts team will start to move a bit more. Texans, they started the season off with Tyrod going MVP mode on everyone. And I think Davis Mills, it really ain't it, at least right now. If they get Tyrod back, who knows? Maybe they could start doing a little bit something more. I can't see. It's the Texans, man. I can't see anything going on there. No disrespect to Texans fans. I know you've been through a lot with Deshaun Watson in this offseason and seeing this team, and I feel for you. And now let's move to my division here, the AFC East. Another division that I think a lot of people thought would be a lot more competitive than it was. Like I mentioned, the Miami Dolphins really were a sneaky contender this year, and they just have not been able to get anything going. Of course, they had the injury to Tua Tagovailoa, who, very unfortunate injury, but Tua has been someone that I also just, he's not progressing the way that everyone thought he would. He's not looking like the answer right now. And I get it's way too early to put Tua in a place and say, yeah, he's this, he's that, because he's only started, 13 games so far. It's just from what I've seen, nothing has impressed me with his play style. And I think that he does really well on the first drive of the game, the stage drive. And aside from that, they're just stagnant. And a lot of that also comes down to their almost non-existent running game. I don't understand why they're revolving three backs. I don't know why, when you have Gaskin and Malcolm Brown there, which are clearly better, and then you have Ahmed taking a lot of snaps. And it doesn't seem like this team is clicking right now. Their defense has been banged up, but they're not really getting a lot of production. They're getting some turnovers, but not the same that they were last year. And a similar team that's getting just no production at all is the New York Jets. And this has been a thing for years now, that they've been they're a porous franchise at this point. I don't really know what else there's to say. I feel bad for Zach Wilson because he kind of got thrown into the Sharks, and he has played not great. Not great. He had that horrible game against New England where he threw 4 interceptions. I still think Zach Wilson has shown a little bit of promise here, but their team is just not good enough to do anything to contend with. I don't think they have the offensive pieces yet. Their defense is looking decent. I think that they have some good pieces there, but they're just not there yet. And another rookie quarterback. Let's get to my team here. Let's get to the New England Patriots. Now, I'll give my perspective of what I think of the season so far. I've enjoyed this season so far from the New England Patriots, based on one guy alone, and that's Mac Jones. Mac Jones is someone that I think has turned some heads recently. I know he was never going to come in here and be mediocre. I think that he was always given, especially going to Bill Belichick, probably the best place for him to go. I think he has met expectations with the season so far. There's a little bit of hiccups. I don't think he hasn't been the most accurate at times, even though has a very good percentage of completion record. He's actually is holding the rookie record so far. I hope that continues for the rest of the season. But I have been impressed from what I've seen with him. His game management skills have been very solid. A lot of my issues with this New England team comes down to the fact that Josh McDaniels is still running the same schemes over and over again. And I have defended McDaniels for years now. It didn't work last year what he tried with Cam Newton. And I'm not going to sit here and say Cam was 100% the fault of why we were 7-9 last year and missed the playoffs the first time in how many years. I think some of that falls onto Josh McDaniels. I don't think we would have been 7-9 if someone like Stidham started. But McDaniels has been stagnant on offense. He runs the same plays, especially in the red zone. It's extremely frustrating to watch him run a ball twice. And seeing the game against the Cowboys, where we had so much momentum to take the game out of your young rookie quarterback's hands, and to just start running the ball again. I don't understand the decision making, and I understand that they don't trust a rookie quarterback yet, or there's issues with the offensive line because, yes, they've been reshuffling their offensive line the whole season so far. They had Wynn and Owenu go on the COVID list. They just got off of it the week before. They only had one starter, which was David Andrews starting, which surprisingly they looked the best offensive line they looked all year was against the Texans. And there's just... the defense is not there either. There's a lot of issues going on with this team right now, and I think that their record, yeah, they're 2-4, but they could easily be 4-1, 5-1 right now. Look how many close games they've had down to the wire so far. They had the fumble against Miami, which was a surefire win because they ran down the clock and they were going to get in. That was eerily similar to Cam Newton fumbling against the Buffalo Bills last year. They had the game against the Buccaneers, which was the most annoying game to listen to because the stations and the news all leading up to that game would not shut up about Tom Brady and his return and how much him and Bill Belichick hate each other, even though that's not the narrative and everyone needs to stop doing that. That game could have come down to it came down to the wire and ultimately a missed field goal. But again, taking the ball out of Mac Jones's hands, another thing that they've been doing. The Texans game, they came back because they literally let Mac Jones sling the ball the whole game. That's what happened. They tried to run the ball. It didn't work. They had a porous running back turnout, another fumble by Damian Harris in the end zone. And just, again, I don't understand why this team is taking the ball out of Mac Jones's hand. I think for this team to be successful, to go on a run, because yes, they're 2-4, but their upcoming schedule, you got the Jets, you got the Chargers, Panthers, Browns, Falcons, Titans, Bills, Colts, Bills, Jaguars, Dolphins. It's a coin flip on how these games are going to go because every game has basically gone down to the wire aside from the Saints game. I think the Patriots, in order to do something through the rest of this run, are going to need to let Mac Jones do what he's been doing and has been proving to be doing, and that's trusting him with the ball. And McDaniels needs to stop doing what he's doing. And if this season is another lost season, because I get it, we're not the best team in the league. We're not even close. I wouldn't say we're contending. We're basically rebuilding at this point, but we should be so much better than we are. Matthew Judon has been an excellent acquisition for this team, and he has been a monster on the defensive end. But I'm a little bit disappointed with the season. I'm not as frustrated as I was last year because last year had a lot of annoying losses. But when I'm looking overall at this AFC East team, AFC in general, the American Football Conference, who I think is going to be coming out here, I don't know. I think the Bills are probably the most well-rounded team, I would say, at the moment. You can't count out the Chiefs, even though Mahomes and that defense has not been the same level that they've always been. And I think the Ravens are the other team that can possibly do something here if Lamar is playing the way he's playing. If that offense gets healthier and that defense gets healthier, and they just got Rashad Bateman back, he had a pretty okay start to his NFL season. I don't know. I think it comes down to those three teams looking at it, but I think there's a couple other teams here, the Titans, the Chargers. There's some other teams here that could make a difference, but going to the NFC, I think it's a little bit more clear cut on who the favorites are to me. And I think it comes down to really ultimately four teams. I think that's the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Cowboys, and the maybe five. I'd say the Rams and the Cardinals too. I think the NFC is a little bit more easy to predict because there's just a lot of underperforming teams here and a lot of injuries. And let's start with the NFC South. You got the Falcons, who are, they're the Falcons. They've been running the same. They look the exact same as they did last year, and instead of taking a quarterback that could have helped them out, they took Kyle Pitts. And that's no flack on Kyle Pitts, and then Kyle Pitts is going to be a really good tight end in the future. That team's not doing anything right now. The Panthers started off hot 3-0. They are now 3-3, and yes, they lost McCaffrey. I think Darnold has been started off very well, and I think they kind of lost their identity a little bit more once McCaffrey went out. And Matt Rule has said that they want about 30 touches a game now for Chuba Hubbard, Canadian representation. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that team. I don't think they're as bad as their 3-game loss, and I think they'll pick it up a little bit more. Their defense is very good, so I think as long as their defense, they're going to get Gilmore back very soon. And that defense, that corners, that's a scary defense. So I think the Panthers will pick it up a little bit more. The Saints are a big question mark because I don't trust that team at all. I think Jameis has not been it. And I know there's going to be people that are going to be defending Jameis Winston, but I don't think that he's fit in this scheme very well. I think that I want him to air the ball out. I know that there's people that are going, no, this is the whole problem with Jameis Winston to begin with, is that he just corks the ball out, and that whatever happens, he throws a pick, he doesn't throw a pick. You know what? At this point, I think they kind of have to, because they're so thin on offense. Kamara can only do so much. He has not been as productive as he has been the last couple of years. I just want to see him throw that ball around. I don't really care, honestly. Even if he doesn't, Sean Payton can. He's got to stop doing the Drew Brees stuff. Let's get Kamara more involved here. Let's get him more involved in the catching game, because that's what we know that Kamara does best, and he hasn't really been doing so well that year so far. Let's get some dip and dunks, and let's just cork that ball out, Jameis. Let Jameis cook. Hashtag, we got Russ to cook last year. Let's get Jameis to cook. Hashtag, let Jameis cook. The Buccaneers are the clear-cut favorites to me in the NFC in general. I as an ex-Patriots fan, as Tom Brady is kind of my ex, it's been an interesting experience watching him play for the Buccaneers. I think their offense is by far the most complete offense in the league, and they're still missing a couple guys there. They're missing Rob Gronkowski, who apparently turned the clock back this season with the amount of touchdowns he's already got. I think their defense is really the big question mark right now, which is surprising because their defense carried them last year. I think that they're going to have to get a lot of those guys back because they are so thin on corner. Just losing Richard Sherman also for a couple weeks, that's going to be the real big question mark. But I think as long as that offense is producing the way it is, Tom Brady has 18 touchdowns on the season already, which is absolutely insane. You have three of the best wide receivers in the league. Antonio Brown, who I think has kind of been pulling away as the wide receiver one of that corpse, to no one's surprise, really. Chris Godwin, that every down guy. And then Mike Evans, someone that's been a little forgotten in that offense. I just don't... All three of them on any given night can go off. And I think as long as that happens, you got Leonard Fournette moving the ball is the way he's doing it. I think that there's really no stopping this team anytime soon. And they to me are the clear-cut team to repeat, and they're the champs for a reason. I discredited them a lot last year because I think that they didn't look that good offensively, and I still don't think they looked that good offensively. I think their defense was just ridiculous. Their front five, as long as that front five is healthy, they can do damage any single game. So the Buccaneers to me are the clear-cut favorites coming out of the NFC South. Moving on to the NFC North. Just a sad state for Detroit Lions fans. I feel you guys. I feel for you guys so bad. How many games have you been robbed from this season? Just absolute heartbreaks. They were seeing the Vikings just win, and seeing Lamar and the Ravens just. Justin Tucker's field goal. I feel they're not as bad as their record says they are. They're not an 0-6 team, and eventually they'll get their win and they'll be happy. It's just I'm sorry, Lions fans. You all expected pain this season, and you're getting pain, and I'm sorry. I hope that eventually you get your win and enjoy. I'm sorry. Bears are another team that I think are kind of floundering around. It's been a strange season so far for Bears fans, with Andy Dalton starting off the season as QB1, where everyone wanted Justin Fields to start off the season, and Dalton went down with an injury, and then Nagy saying, okay, well, Dalton's going to come back and be the starter, and he didn't actually. They still rolled with Justin Fields, and I think Fields has a lot of promise to his game. I'm just not sure that this season is it. Their defense is not as good as they have been in the years prior. So they're going to be another team that's kind of just going to be floating around probably that 500 mark for me the whole season. The Vikings are another team that's going to be very similar to that. I think that a lot of people discredit their offense. I don't really understand why. I think that they have a very good offense, and Kirk Cousins, for as much flack as he's been getting for the COVID, the vaccine protocols, all of that, he is proven once again to be one of the most reliable quarterbacks in the league. And some of you are probably laughing. I've never really understood a lot of the hatred for Kirk Cousins. He's been a good quarterback, and I think that y'all need to get off his back. Just because he likes to scream you like that doesn't mean that he deserves the hate that he's been getting. But this team is not doing anything. Their defense is still not moving to the level that Mike Zimmer wants them to move. And eventually there's going to have to be some some reshuffle on that organization to change things, because they're going to stay stagnant for a while if they don't do anything, because for some reason that team just can't get anything going. The Packers, the team that everyone doomed off of after 1 week, this is the end. Rodgers isn't trying. He turned to Bears fans and said, "I still own you." So I think he is very much still motivated. They are now 5-1 on the season. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. As long as he's there for the season, they're going to be contending, and I think that these two teams are going to be a surefire. The Buccaneers and the Packers are going to be two surefire teams to meet somewhere down the line in the playoffs, because the Packers they're a very good, solid team. The NFC West is the division that a lot of people thought was going to be the most interesting division to watch so far. It hasn't quite turned out that way so far because of injuries. Russell Wilson is actually injured. That's never really happened before, and Russ is out, which is really sad. I love watching Russ play, but the Seahawks, as long as Russ is out, poor Gino, I don't think they're going to be doing anything. I think that this injury is going to be kind of a write-off for their team in general. Their defense is still not good. There is something that also needs to... They're very much like the Vikings to me. They have a very good offense with a running back that can never stay healthy. Chris Carson is an issue on that team, and I think there's going to need to be some addressing there, because he can't stay healthy to save his life. And I think that something's got to move. I think either Pete Carroll moves on, or you do something with Russ, because this team is not going to do anything. Very much like the Vikings. They're not going to do anything until something changes. The Niners are in the exact same boat as they were last year. They are constantly hurt, and they are losing players all the time. They've lost Kittle again. They lost Garoppolo. They've lost all of their running backs. It has been an absolute door revolver of running backs. They had Mostert for one quarter, and then they had Elijah Mitchell, and he got hurt, and then they put in Trey Sermon, and then he got hurt, and then they put him in again, and they have been another disastrous year for the 49ers so far. And seeing Trey Lance play, he's finally taken the reins for now until Garoppolo comes back, but he's been all right so far. It seems like they're only 2-3 to start the season, so I think that they could make a little bit of a run here, especially if some of these players do come back a little bit healthier. Their schedule is a bit lighter than the rest of the NFC, but I don't know. I don't think that team's really going to be doing anything soon. And then they come down to the two teams that are neck and neck in the NFC West, which is the Rams and the Cardinals. And I think these two teams both can make a run in the postseason, especially the Rams. I think that Matthew Stafford's finally getting the love he deserves. He's been excellent so far for the Rams, and that connection with Cooper Kupp has been killer for a lot of defenses so far. They are a very complete team. I think them and the Buccaneers are probably two of the most complete teams in the league. I don't really see any issues on that team at all. I think that they have a huge shot to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm enjoying what I'm seeing from that team. I think Sean McVay is a very good coach. I think that he's got this team believing. Stafford, again, big-time Stafford is showing up on the big stage now, on the big team, and he deserves it. So I'm excited to see what this Rams team does. The shocker of the year is the only undefeated team in the league so far is the Arizona Cardinals. Courtesy of Kyler Murray and that ridiculously good defense, they are legit. The acquisition of J.J. Watt has helped them out. They've just been really good. They've been killer. They have had 194 points for and only 109 points against. That's one of the best in the league so far, and there's a reason that they're 6-0. I think that I don't know if I've necessarily called them contenders, because I think I need to see a little bit more, but their offense is lethal. They now have Zach Ertz on that offense, which I think will give them a little bit of a nice boost, because they don't really have that. Aside from Nick Hopkins, they don't really have that security blanket of a player. So I think that Ertz would be really good for some of those like little short distance downs that they need. I'm excited to keep seeing them play. I think Kyler's proven me wrong. In my life has been a little bit against Kyler Murray. I've never really saw him as that good of a quarterback, especially the collapse last year. I think he's going to prove me wrong, and I'm very much enjoying what I'm seeing out of that Cardinals team. And then we come back to the crappiest division again. Just another letdown again this year for the NFC East. There is just nothing going on. There's no life in any of these teams except for one, which is the Dallas Cowboys, which I think a lot of Cowboys fans would have told you before the beginning of the season, we're going to the Super Bowl, because that's what they do every single year. Hey, you know what? Cowboys are looking good this year. I will give them that. Their offense, they're a top 4 offense, top 5 offense in the league. Dak has been playing at an exceptional level. They have had great production out of Zeke Elliott, who's having a great bounce back year so far. Again, another player that has proven me wrong so far. CeeDee Lamb is coming along nicely. Amari Cooper's coming along nicely. And they're getting production out of their defense, mainly from currently the defensive player of the year in my eyes, which is Diggs. He's been ridiculous. I don't know how you've had an interception in every single game so far. And 2 pick sixes, and that's not fluky at this point. That's they're good. They're looking good. They're looking good. I don't want to get your hopes up, Cowboys fans, because I know that you all get a little excited every time you see that you got your big win against my Patriots team. You're all excited, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with you guys there. But Giants, you're a garbage organization. I'm so sorry that you have had to sit through that. Giants fans too. One of my good friends is a Giants fan. I'm so sorry that you have this, that you're just sitting through this. But oh my God, it is frustrating to see the Giants play. But a lot of that again comes down to injuries. None of their wide receivers can stay healthy, and even when they got a stud in Kadarius Toney, he gets hurt immediately. It's another write-off, another year for the Giants was a write-off. The Eagles, which we knew were going to be rebuilding, have not looked as good. For some reason, Miles Sanders is still non-existent in this offense. Everyone thought with Doug Peterson leaving the team, that for his hatred for Miles Sanders was going to get used again. It seems like a trick play every time Miles Sanders is running the ball now, and you can hear the Eagles crowd going nuts when he is touching the ball because he doesn't do it. They don't give him the ball anymore, and I think you can count a lot of their losses down to the fact that they're not running the ball. They're dependent on Hurts's long ball, and Hurts is not very accurate with his deep throws. So I think there's a lot of issues, again, from the front office perspective on this Eagles team that are going to need to be addressed. Their head coach he's made a lot of dumbfounding decisions so far, and I'm not thrilled with the direction the Eagles are going. Another team that I'm upset that aren't doing as well as I thought they were going to be doing this year is the Washington football team. And I'm excited Taylor Heineke's getting his time to shine, because I think after what he did against the Buccaneers in the wildcard game last year, he kind of deserves that time to go and shine. But there's been, again, so many injuries to this team. Ryan Fitzpatrick getting hurt immediately. They have not had Curtis Samuel at all on offense. Their defense is not nearly as good as it was last year. They've just been red flag after red flag on that team. And Heineke's doing okay. He's not been exceptional. He's not been really horrible. He's just been kind of a backup quarterback, which I guess you kind of have that picture now, is that when Fitzpatrick comes back, this will be his team again, I think. I don't know. That's just kind of what's going on. And that's my general rundown on the NFL right now. 6 weeks in, I think it's been a really fun season so far. Again, I don't think the NFC really comes down to 5 teams, and the AFC is kind of like a little bit of like a 3-horse race, really. And I think the NFC is a lot more interesting than the AFC at the moment, because the AFC is just an absolute crapshoot. I hope my Patriots decide to smarten up and let Mac Jones hit the ball, just throw the ball, just let him do it, please. Shifting on towards the NBA now, which is starting its new season today with the Brooklyn Nets and the defending champion, the Milwaukee Bucks, which will be a fun game tonight, seeing Giannis and Kevin Durant. Of course, this is a rematch of the 7-game series last season that went to the Milwaukee Bucks, who beat the Nets an upset, and the Bucks went on to beat the Suns in 5 games to win the NBA championship. And I'm a Raptors fan, so I say that a little bit with a heavy heart, because I'm not a huge Bucks fan. But you know what? Y'all deserve it at this point. And I would rather see the Bucks win over a team like the Nets or the Los Angeles retirement homes, or the Clippers. I'm going to give a little bit of kind of my thoughts on what's happened so far in this offseason so far, because really 2 men have kind of just bubbled up this offseason mayhem. And that's Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons, for 2 very different reasons. Kyrie Irving has refused to get the COVID-19 vaccine, and there's been a kind of like a standoff between him and the front office, which actually has come to a head to the front office just saying Kyrie is not going to be participating in team events until he gets the vaccine. They said that he was not going to be getting a new contract after his final year next season, and that he just will not be participating with the teams. There is a mandate in Brooklyn that you must be vaccinated to do indoor events, and he's just not it, and they're not going to find him an area because it becomes too much of a distraction to play and to work that into your schedule, and I really don't blame them. Kyrie has been a headache for a while now. He's continuing to be a headache, and this does, I think, lessen a lot of the Nets' chances. However, when you still have James Harden and Kevin Durant there, I don't know how much it really lessens it a little bit. Obviously, Kyrie is a phenomenal player. There's no denying how good he is of a basketball player, but basketball has not been his focus at all in the last couple of years. It's been clear and obvious that he has been focused on every other thing except for basketball, and he really just doesn't care. And you can tell, and he's going on his Instagram live defending, saying it's about free choice, and he's making this decision and whatever, and just honestly, if you don't want to get paid, you don't want to play, fine, do you. And that's what it's come down to, is that I don't think he'll play at all this season. I'm not sure the Nets are going to trade him. I don't know really what team is going to want to bite on that, because if you have a guy that's refusing to get vaccinated, and a lot of players in the league are vaccinated, that's not a stat that's made up. Majority of players have gotten the vaccination. Andrew Wiggins bit the bullet and got the vaccination, even though he was one of the first people to be arguing against all of this. And I just don't get it. I don't think I'm going to get it, because people are going to argue either way, and that's just the climate we live in now, is that everyone has to have an opinion on something. I guess that's kind of counterintuitive, because I'm also giving my opinion on something, but hey, that's what I'm here for. And then the other one, Ben Simmons is being something right now, and there's actually some breaking news that has just dropped recently. He just got kicked out of practice with the Philadelphia 76ers. There's this whole thing in the offseason of Ben Simmons feeling like he has been given up on and is tired of it, and he wants to leave. And there's been trades that have been explored, and apparently they're highballing everyone and trying to get so much. There was a rumor earlier this season that they tried to offer the Raptors Ben Simmons for OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes. Just for Ben Simmons. I would just like to throw that out there and say, what the hell are you smoking? But he has been... Oh my God, I feel like it's just revolving between Kyrie and Ben Simmons every other day. And the fact that he just got thrown out of practice, he has returned to practice the day before. There was a video of him looking so unenthused and so unmotivated, and he's apparently just given up on his teammates completely. There is another article that came out earlier this year about how his teammates were going to fly out to go talk to him and go hang out with him, and he just said, nah, you're not coming. Don't come to me. I don't want to see you. This news about him getting thrown out of practice, Joel Embiid just said that he doesn't care about him, and this is where we're at. He's apparently a distraction, says Doc, and this is where we're going with Ben Simmons. And I think that Philly's just shooting themselves in the foot by giving this guy attention, by letting him come back. I think they should just suspend him completely if he's not willing to be playing for your team. He's given up on you, fine, get rid of him, because you're gonna keep shooting his value down. What team is going to want to buy into a player that's doing this right now, that's pulling all of this to make himself look horrible? And yeah, there was a very similar situation with James Harden last year. I think that was a slightly bit different than what Ben Simmons is doing. I think Ben Simmons is being completely unprofessional. And I think that there's a line eventually where I don't know where this is ending. I think you just suspend Simmons. You just keep trying to find trades for him, and eventually Morey's going to have to just take a trade. You're not gonna let this guy play. Are you? Are you really going to let this guy come onto your floor right now when he clearly is looking like a locker room cancer and is acting up and just doesn't want to play? And there's no denying the talent of Ben Simmons, at least defensively and playmaking wise. I think Ben Simmons is one of the better defenders in the league, and I think that if he put his effort in on offense, he would be one of the best point guards in the league. But until he does that, he's not going to, because he doesn't have a jumper. He is awful with whenever he's put in a situation where he needs to do something, he passes the ball up instead of actually trying to go and do something. I don't think I've seen him dunk ever. Why? He's so tall. Why are you not dunking? This is a story that's going to be also fascinating to just watch unfold, because he has been suspended one game now. He will not play his opening night game tomorrow for the 76ers, and it's interesting to see how long this is going to go on for, because what's the end game here? Is Ben Simmons going to actually play for this team? because if he does, I feel like that's a distraction and they're not going to do anything. And what are you going to get now for Ben Simmons when you're seeing all of these reports of him just not wanting to be there, and he's acting and being the way he is? Who wants that on your team? Who are you willing to give up for someone that doesn't care like that? I think that's going to be really interesting to watch unfold. And let's talk about my team now, the Toronto Raptors. Obviously a very strange season last year, having to go to Tampa Bay. I guess it's Tampa Bay, isn't it? And they'll be the only team that didn't win in Tampa last year. They were forced to go and spend their whole season there, and all of their home games were basically away games, and it was probably the most frustrating season I've ever had to watch. And I've sat through a lot of Raptors basketball seasons that have been frustrating to watch. I've sat through LeBronto. Really nothing tops LeBronto. Those sweeps hurt my soul. But it was a frustrating final season for Kyle Lowry, to be sure, that he never got his final game as a Raptor in front of a packed crowd in Scotiabank Arena is extremely upsetting, and he has now gone on to greener pastures and is now with the Miami Heat, which is a very good fit for him. I think that the Heat needed some veteran presence with Jimmy and Bam to help space the floor a little bit more, and I think that he's just a great fit there. I don't think they'll be contending. I think that still comes down to the Nets and the Bucks out of the East. But I think they'll be right up there with them, and I think that they'll be fun to watch. The Raptors, on the other hand, are going to be going through a little bit of a transition year this year. It's going to be harder to see if they're going to be contending. I don't think they'll ever be contending, but I think they're a fringe playoff team in my eyes. I think that there's going to be a lot of doubters that are going to be proven wrong. I think a lot of that comes down to OG Anunoby and his progression of turning into the star that we think that he can be. I think with Pascal Siakam out to start off the season, when OG being their clear-cut number one at the time, that now it's now or never for OG. He's 23 years old, and it's basically his team now. So I'm excited to see how he moves, how he does. Obviously, the Raptors got the 4th overall pick this year in Scotty Barnes, to a lot of people's and myself surprise, and was a little bit hesitant on the pick to start off, but I think seeing what I've seen from him play, then the athletic freak that he is, and the presence, I think he fits their team quite nicely. I think the Raps are going to be pretty solid this year. You know what? I think no team is ever going to come into Scotiabank Arena and go, this is an easy win. That's for Detroit Pistons games. That's not for us. And it'll be nice to see home games, just again, the energy from the crowd, and seeing some new faces on this team. Goran Dragic, who I've kind of come around with. I was never a big Dragic fan. I was certainly not a fan when I heard the news and how he was trashing our team when he got traded over to us. But he seemed to kind of accept his role now, and I'm not sure he'll be here the whole season. I think we'll try to get something for him in the middle of the season before the trade deadline. But Precious Achiuwa, who obviously came from the Lowry trade as well, I think he's the potential out of all of this to be an incredible center in the future. I'm not sure he'll ever be all-star center caliber, but he looks good. I think that was the clear piece Masai wanted in all of this trade. And I don't know. I think we all expect this season to come down to four teams, right? We all expect this to come down to either the Nets, the Bucks, and the Lakers with their roster of old men and 35-year-olds. LeBron, you can't count LeBron out. They now have Russell Westbrook somehow, and I think that they'll just be a very good team. And I was going to say the Clippers, wasn't I? But Kawhi's not playing. Kawhi will not be there to start the season, nor will I think he'll actually play the whole season. I think he'll be out for like 3/4 of the season. The Warriors will be fun to watch. I think once Klay comes back around Christmas time, they'll be fun to watch. I just think we all kind of know how the season's going to go. It's going to come down to those super teams. It's going to come down to the Nets, and whatever the resolution is with the Kyrie situation, whether he gets vaccinated and shuts up and plays, or he holds out, or they trade him, who knows? And the Bucks, I think, like, you can't count out the defending champs. They're a very well-rounded team. Giannis is taking jumpers. That shit's scary. I don't know. As much as I'm not as looking forward to this season, because I feel like it's super predictable, and I think the next couple seasons might be this way as long as we've still got these super teams. I think I will always enjoy turning on a game, watching my Raptors go defensively ham on someone else, and just enjoying it, you know. And it's good to have sports back. I think if I've learned one thing out of the pandemic, it was that I took sports extremely for granted. I took a lot of things during the pandemic for granted, but sports is a huge part of me and something that I've always loved. And I love talking about it. I love just anything around sports. And I'm excited to see the basketball season kick off tonight. I will be watching the Nets and Bucks game. Of course I will, because that's a fun ass game. And the Lakers and Warriors could also be fun, seeing Steph go MVP mode again. And I'm excited. We'll see what happens with the Blackhawks. That about wraps up for this video. I think I've got a good spot to stop talking. I gave you a little bit of everything. Give you a little taste of hockey. I'm gonna get into the hockey season more as it moves on, as I start watching a little bit more games, as the Blackhawks figure their stuff out, and NFL and NBA and beyond. And I might cover some wrestling. Who knows? It's kind of up to me, really. And that's the most exciting part about this. And if you have any suggestions in the comments below, any guests you want to try to get me to get, any little, anything you want me to talk about, anything. I'm an open book. I'm all ears. That about wraps up for this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. This has been the Sports Talk with Jake, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.